With the end of 2024 comes the sunset on the WRC's hybrid era. The experimentation with mixed propulsion comes to an end, as hybrid will be removed for 2025 and may come back in the future with WRC 27 regulations, but it's not confirmed yet. As somebody who has covered WRC's hybrid story from the very beginning, I spoke about it in 2019, and my coverage of it in 2020 ended up in a university syllabus. I figured it might be a good time to talk about it in retrospect. Talk about the highs and the lows, and a little bit about the history of Rally1. And starting off with the history of Rally1. Rally1 was envisaged as a formula to keep the WRC up to date with the most recent road technology, more recent safety technologies, as well as keeping the costs down. Originally, two ideas were floated. One that was essentially the Rally2 cars with a hybrid bolted onto it, and another that was the World Rally cars at the time, with a couple of bits missing and a hybrid added in. So less trick aerodynamics, less complex suspension, the removal of the central differential. This one was preferred by some of the teams, most notably Toyota, as it meant that you weren't likely to see the non-hybrid Rally 2 cars beating the hybrid Rally 2 Pluses that would have been Rally 1 in this alternate scenario on some stages. A bit like you would see in the 2017 World Rally Car era on some of the downtown super special stages, such as in Germany, or as we saw in the Rally 1 era this year in Sweden, when the thick snow meant that you had stage wins by Rally 2 cars. It was originally signed up to by the 4 WRC manufacturers at the time in 2019. That was Hyundai, M Sport with some Ford backing, Toyota, and Citroën, though Stellantis withdrew their support at the end of 2019 after Sébastien Ogier left the team to go across to Toyota, supposedly. Though whether or not that was it, or whether that was just the excuse that they gave to withdraw from the championship, is another matter entirely. Over the course of the WRC's hybrid era from 2022, we have seen 24 different drivers, with 4 different drivers driving for different teams. Ford's had the most unique drivers with 12. Adrien Fourmeau, Craig Breen, Gus Greensmith, Sebastian Loeb, Pierre-Louis Loubet, Jordan Söderrieders, Lorenzo Bertelli and Jari Huttinen. All 8 of those were just in 2022. They also saw Oid Tanak, Gregoire Munster, Alberto Heller and Martin Sesks. Hyundai had 8. Thierry Neuville, Oid Tanak, Danny Sordo, Oliver Solberg, Craig Breen, Esa-Pekka Lappi, Teemu Sininen and Andreas Mikkelsen. Toyota also had 8. Carlo Rompera, Elfyn Evans, Sebastian Ogier, Takamoto Katsuta, Esa-Pekka Lappi, Lorenzo Bertelli, Jari-Matti Latvala and Sami Päiväri. And yes, that was 4 drivers who drove for more than one different Rally 1 manufacturer. And over the course of it, we have seen 7 different winners. Sebastian Loeb opened up the books with a win, battling Sébastien Ogier at Rally Monte Carlo 2022, with Isabelle Galmiche becoming the first woman to stand on the top step of a WRC podium since Fabrizia Pons in the first round of the World Rally Car era, 25 years apart at Rally Monte Carlo as well. And yes, we saw multiple different winners in 22, 23 and 24. We saw all 3 manufacturers win in 22 and 23, with all 3 still getting the podiums in 2024. And we saw world champions driving for all 3 different manufacturers across the time period as well, though MS Sport didn't have that same luxury in 2024. In terms of the successes of Rally1, and we need to keep these successes in mind, one of the biggest ones was in safety and the space frame chassis. that meant that manufacturers could adapt their road cars to the FIA spec chassis, which I'll talk about a little bit in a moment as well. But the space frame chassis was designed to increase the safety, having seen things such as the gargantuan 2020 Rally Monte Carlo crash for Oit Tanak. Before the season even started in 2022, Thierry Neuville had a massive crash where the test car for the i20 Hybrid Rally1 ended up down a ravine. In the Monte Carlo Rally of 2022, we saw another massive crash for Adrien Fourmeau in a similar sort of fashion. Takamoto Katsuta had a massive crash at the Safari in 2023, and even when he got to 2024, we saw crashes for Oit Tanak in Japan, as well as when he was testing for Rally Liepāja in Latvia with his home round of Estonia as part of the ERC. In addition to that, these are undoubtedly the most powerful cars in WRC history. There are some stats that are thrown around for Group B, but as far as we're aware, these may have even been more powerful than the Group B cars, with well over 500 horsepower generated from the cars at the time. Like I said, we had 6 different winners in 2024, in addition to that 7 that we've had in 2022. In fact, it's the most that we had in a single season since the advent of the 2017 Spec World Rally car. And even then, when you go back through WRC history, there are very few other occasions where you can find this many different winners. It shows that it's quite a close formula, with part-time drivers such as Esi-Pekka Lappi picking up wins, in addition to the likes of Sebastian Loeb in 2022, as well as full-timers in the likes of Thierry Neuville or Oit Tanak. We've also seen some of the fastest stage times in WRC history. We've seen the return of the full-length unemployer test, as well as rallies like New Zealand and Japan. The Rally 1 cars were meant to be this kind of step up for the Rally 2, where you didn't have to worry as much about the trick aerodynamics or understanding how the hybrid worked. You could arguably see it with debatably the most successful driver of the Rally 2, the Rally 1 and Rally 2, someone who graduated from Rally 2 into the WRC in 2020, Carlo Rovanperä. The 2022 and 2023 champion utterly dominated the 2022 season, and you could argue it's because he had so much experience in Rally 2 machinery beforehand. But other drivers that could talk about this success were the likes of Martin Sesks, who stepped up from Rally 2 to Rally 1 this season, had a rally in Poland without the hybrid, and then in his home rally of Latvia was competing potentially even for the win at some points as well, against the likes of Carlo Rovanperä and Sebastian Ogier. In fact, it was differential issues that really cost him a podium in his second outing. Sami Päivärinta ended up being the driver with the fewest top class starts with Rally 1 stages, when he won a stage at Rally Finland this season. The only driver who's had fewer top class starts before getting a first stage win was Sebastian Ogier, when he got his stage win, I think on his very first attempt in a World Rally car at Sweet Lamb in, I think it was 2008. There are so many amazing feats that we can think about with the Rally 1 cars, and these feats should hopefully continue when hybrid goes. In addition to that, you have the success of the space frame formula. Toyota famously scaled up their cars in 2017 to compete in the WRC with their Yaris. But the space frame formula meant that with a spec chassis, different manufacturers could grow and shrink their cars as needed. Ford, knowing that the Fiesta was going to come to the end of its production life cycle, and M Sport worked together with a Puma instead, and the Puma could go to the Rally 2 series as well, should space frame be approved for Rally 2 cars in the same kind of way that it has for Rally 1. And this is something that's being retained as well, especially when the automotive industry moves away from hatchbacks or saloons to things such as SUVs. It can be something that's a great success for rallying. But we can't talk about the pros without talking about the cons, and this is the reason why hybrid has ended, and it's part of the reason why WRC 27 is going to look drastically different to Rally 1. The costs. Originally, The Rally 1 cars were meant to be cheaper than the World Rally cars. That's why they had more shared parts with WRC 2 and the Rally 2 cars. It's why they had less complex parts, the removal of the central differential, only a set amount of different suspension settings that you could have. But in the end, costs ended up being up to €1 million. And in addition to that, the fourth manufacturer to replace Citroën never materialised, and privateers never really materialised either. It was difficult in the WRC 2017 era, where you saw a couple of privateer Fords in private ownership, most notably Mats Ostberg and Henning Solberg shared one, Yana Tahino bought one, and you saw a few running around in national championships, old Hyundai chassis predominantly, but also Citroëns that ended up being sold off to the likes of PH Sport or Santaloc. If you have a look at Gino WRC Invest, who has teamed up with Dirtfish multiple times, you'll see that he's had an entire array of different WRC 2017 cars in his collection. But privateers weren't really buying the Rally 1 cars. We've seen a couple of them, especially since Hybrid was not mandated for running the Rally 1 cars. Jordan Serdaridis was the first one to buy a Rally 1 privately. There's also been another one sold off to, I believe it was Indonesia, and it was actually the chassis that Martin Sesks ran in Poland that was sold off. But we don't really see them in the World Rally Championship. When I spoke about the drivers that had a couple of entries, Botelli had one in Ford and two with Toyota, Hutten one with Ford, that was, I believe, M Sport backed, and the likes of Heller as well. Even you could talk about Sesks or Latvala, or the 3 rounds of Piari. They were all rented cars. Granted, with Sesks and Piari, it's a bit different. They were part funded by the WRC promoter themselves. But that even speaks to a bigger issue, because Heller's one was for Rally Chile, Chilean driver. It was to get a home start in the car for that round. But the fact that the WRC promoter had to provide the funding, it's funding that Hyundai have access to, but haven't chosen to exercise yet. They might do next season with a 4th car at some events. But it tells you that there is this big problem. And that's something that's not going to necessarily go away with the hybrid going. But one thing that is the running costs of the hybrid. Compact Dynamics was supposedly going to bring in a new regulation that would make it even more expensive to run the hybrid in 2025. Stuff that would lead to them having to have the unit sent back to them if there was any fault with it in the rally. Now, we didn't have too many red light hybrid issues in 2024, and not particularly many in 23 either. 2022 is where we saw the most of them, and Oyt Tanak was the unfortunate driver to be on the receiving end of a lot of them. I think ones that I remember were, Sweden and Mexico. He was forced to retire because of a red hybrid light on the car. But the costs were going to be so great that supposedly M Sport, who have scaled back to 2 full-time cars as they did towards the end of the World Rally car era, weren't necessarily going to be able to make it to the start of 2025 if this plan was to be followed through. It's part of why the Compact Dynamic contract, which was meant to run until the end of 2026, because it got extended and was originally meant to end at the end of this year, has actually been ended early. There is also the tragic events in Rally 1. And whilst this isn't the fault of Rally 1, I believe the in-question reports say that it isn't the fault of the design of the Rally 1 cars. It is a tragedy that will be associated with Rally 1 in the same way that Rally Portugal of 1986 will be associated with Group B. And that is the testing crash in Croatia on April the 13th, 2023, which tragically claimed the life of Craig Breen. And Craig Breen was one of the stars of rallying. Arguably one of the, if not the greatest driver to never win a rally. In his final WRC start in Sweden in 2023, he was proclaimed in some ways by himself as the mayor of Bratby. And I remember where I was when that news broke from Croatia. And it wasn't the fault of the Rally1 design necessarily. It wasn't the fault of the hybrid, but it is something that the Rally1 era will be associated with forever. And it's such a loss to the WRC and to rallying worldwide. A hero of the sport, someone who lived and breathed it. I remember one of my favourite moments for Craig, the WRC, was when he was with M Sport. I think it was Portugal 2022. They had Marcus Grönholm doing some of the stagehand interviews at one of the super specials. And Craig's just joking away with Marcus in the interview and says, "My dad has one of your old Focuses and he's happy to sell it back to you for a good price if you want it." Such the way of Craig Brain. Tributes to Craig are still around the service park. From Mike Chen's entry in Monza to Hyundai's for Craig at the back of the car and the special paint scheme that they've run in Croatia the past 2 years. Will forever be sorely missed, and the world, and especially the rallying world, is worse off without him. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you for watching, folks, and thank you for joining. If you've watched through this entire video, thank you so much. It means so much to me. And I hope to see you around for more. We're only a couple of weeks away now from the WRC starting, and it's only a couple of days from the Monte Carlo entry lists for 2025. So yeah, until next time, it's bye-bye for now.